It's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
Hello and welcome. He is Gary McNamara. I'm Eric Harley as we move into a Thursday. Gary, how are you?
Not good. Twitter's down. I'm going home.
Yeah, we decided to cancel everything, including Christmas, because Twitter has been down. Reuters is actually reporting on it. That's how bad this is.
Well, the funny thing is, I bookmark a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And use it to play back audio cuts.
Right.
So when I went to it, it wasn't working, and you and I looked at each other, and the first thought was, okay, now since I don't pay for it and don't have a check mark, it's like, okay, are they shutting me down completely? You and I are thinking, all right, is it down, or are they shutting me down?
Well, the experience was going to be different for non-subscribers. Elon Musk made that very clear from the beginning. And so I thought, how desperate are you to start getting? Because if you can't get advertisers, what do you do next? Well, you choke out the non-subscribers and you make their experience more miserable. Under his plan of cap and trade, Twitter subscription rates would necessarily skyrocket.
Well, on tomorrow's show, I will, because I've been getting requests for it, I'll tell the guillotine story.
We're going to do it with all celebrity voices.
The best Christmas gift I ever received. Now, I want to make this clear for those who know the story. And it's funny because the people that know the story are the ones that are telling me, come on, you haven't told the guillotine story. So they want it year after year.
Well, some people in our audience start drinking early, yeah.
But I want to make this clear because it was my brother that got me the model guillotine.
Right.
Now,
not your parents.
Not my parents, but my parents made me take it back to the store. Now, I want to make it clear. My parents were not for banning guillotines. Only what they thought was
assault guillotines.
No, what they thought was that's not the direction I'm going. The direction I'm going is the fact that they did not ban it. They thought it was not age appropriate for me.
Oh, that's interesting. Get John McNamara on the phone
to have a guillotine.
I want to know what that age line is.
Well, I think I had to be 8 because I know I wasn't 10 years, because 10 years I was in Cub Scouts.
Right.
And I know at that point that was after. That I do remember, but I'm not sure. I'm guessing I was 8 years old, but I was sitting there laughing, thinking a Democrat would come up to me and say, well, your parents are for banning guillotines, model guillotines. Well, no, not for adults. It was an age-appropriate thing. Don't lie about it.
Yeah.
As they're doing with, we played, I don't know, we did play yesterday when Kamala Harris talking about that Republicans are for banning. No, they're for age. And by the way, we all are for age-appropriate things for young people.
Well, we used to be, yeah. The liberals now, aren't, but yeah.
Well, it all depends. I mean, would they just would Kamala Harris be for hardcore porn?
I was about to ask.
For 5 or 6 or 7 years.
I was about to ask.
Because that's what it's about. It's the same thing as we said about abortion. Abortion has changed because abortion is no longer what it was before, which is this is about a woman's body, because the majority of women believe that there should be limits on abortion. And so, therefore, it's become not whether it's, your body, your choice. As I have found out with every pro-choice woman I've had this with, I said, oh, you're for abortion to birth. Well, absolutely not. I'm, how long? Well, the third trimester, 6 weeks, whatever. I said, well, then it's not about your body. And every one of them started out by saying, it's about my body. I go, well, you're just telling me it's not about your body. You look like you're confused here, because it's now become an argument of life, and of when does life begin, which, as we said, is a huge leap forward for that particular issue. But with the book bannings, as they keep saying they're banning books, or they want to make it seem as if Republicans are banning books for adults instead of age-appropriate materials for 5, 6, and 7-year-olds.
Yeah,
which was the debate in Florida, and it just gets back. And the reason I brought it up, I just wanted to make the comparison again because they lie about it. They lie because they can't. They know they can't win the argument, so they lie. So I figured I'd bring the guillotine in there.
Saw a guy on YouTube with a real guillotine. Yeah. They built it.
What's he doing with it? I mean,
mostly watermelons, but then they wanted to get up to the in that moment. I think there's probably another video where they demonstrate the full range of power of, all right, how strong is it? What will it actually slice through? And I'm thinking maybe we need to get you one of those for your backyard.
Get rid of the pool.
Yeah. Your HOA may not like it, but who cares?
I can see myself submitting that to the HOA.
Yeah.
I wish to get rid of my pool, and instead...
It's a vegetable slicer.
Well, I want to fill it in, make it a complete concrete slab, and put a large vegetable guillotine...
A vegetable processor in the backyard. There's nothing in the HOA agreement that says no vegetable processors in the backyard. That would be such a nightmare for an HOA president. Now, in some of the land I own, we have what is called a POA, Property Owners Association. And it's in this gated area. And I mean, they're on everything, everything. And it's on a lake. But I thought, if I lived here full time, I would be the thorn in their side. I would just be the thorn. They would hang up on me every time I called. Seriously, vegetable processor for the backyard. The Potato-Matic 3000. Guillotine. Don't say guillotine. Don't say guillotine. Don't say guillotine. You're at an HOA meeting. Don't say guillotine. Don't say
guillotine. Vegetable processor.
The vegetable processor.
Well, I thought the best headline yesterday on the whole Trump being disqualified by the Colorado Supreme Court was this one. The problem with the Colorado Supreme Court decision is that it's wrong.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because yesterday I didn't even get to the dissent. During the show is when I actually, scanned the actual ruling, but I never went to the dissent. We made it clear that the dissent came from 3 Democrats. Did you see yesterday that the 4, they said, here's the difference. The 4 justices that said, yeah, disqualify Trump are all Ivy League, and the other 3 were not.
Yeah.
Ivy League graduates.
That's funny.
That was the 3 that dissented. But it was when you see the analysis of it, you see how weak it is. I mean, I was watching some of the video of guests and stuff on MSNBC, and it's just like, well, they're not addressing the legal issues of it at all.
Right.
And they're not addressing the truth at all. They're addressing side issues.
Right.
It's like Trump is bad, so we can do it.
Yeah.
But when you get into the legalities of it, I thought, number one, this is something that you and I said about the January 6th committee, which, again, did not allow, as we have said, cross-examination of the witnesses or the evidence. And that is part of what the dissent was about, is because they used the January 6th commission to justify what they were doing. And as we stated before, there was never due process, which is why we have said that can't think of her name. the former congresswoman from Wyoming.
Liz Cheney?
Liz Cheney. That's why we said Liz Cheney is not a conservative.
Right.
Anybody who tries to sell you that she's a conservative, she's not. If you don't believe in due process under the law, you're not a conservative.
Right.
Obviously, we've talked about the fact that the Democrats have moved way far away from due process under the law. And the interesting thing is, as was brought up yesterday, the 14th Amendment is all about due process.
Yeah, right.
That's what the 14th Amendment is about. And these justices look at it posterior backwards, and this is what the dissent was from the Democrat justices. You've got to have due process. You cannot disqualify somebody for elected office unless there's some form of due process, and there was no form of due process at all.
Yeah.
And anywhere in the court system, which is due process, no charges have ever been brought. So you can't say it's insurrection just because you want to call it insurrection.
Right.
You've got to have the evidence to back it up, and you have to have due process. Not just the evidence, but you need to take that evidence, because every case has evidence. It's whether the evidence gets you anywhere. And it's like, so, all right, so do you have the evidence to file a charge? Nobody does. And to read you some of the things that the decision of our former President Donald J. Trump, by all accounts, the current leading Republican presidential candidate from Colorado's presidential primary ballot, flies in the face of the due process doctrine. Even if we are convinced that a candidate committed horrible acts in the past, dare I say, engaged in insurrection, this is actually from the decision, there must be a procedural due process before we can declare that individual disqualified from holding public office.
Yep.
The dissent went on to argue that allowing states to decide individually whether to allow Trump's candidacy risks chaos in the country. The justices conjured visions of state governments divided on the legitimacy of the victorious presidential candidate. This can't possibly be the outcome that the framers intended.
Well,
a Democrat judge, basically using originalist or a constructionist argument.
Because we don't know, how far left this judge is, but assume that they are far, 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 far left. Almost Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney left. They are looking at this. They are looking at this as the potential problem down the road. But what if the GOP gets control of the state at some point? Or in other states, the GOP decides to take Biden off the ballot or Hillary off the ballot. Well, no, she'll solve it in another way. If this is going to be the back and forth politically, then it becomes extremely dangerous. You saw the Colorado GOP saying, we'll withdraw the primary election process as a party, and we'll go caucus. If this stands, we'll just change our system. And for the primary, they can do that. They'll just go to a caucus system in Colorado. But the case needs to go to the high court and needs to be overturned so that officially these justices here, the four judges here in Colorado can be shown exactly what was wrong in their decision. It was 4 of the 7. It's just mind-boggling. And also the lower court judge, when she just cites insurrection because she thinks it's an insurrection. No, it meets an insurrection. Well, he hasn't been charged with insurrection. And you don't have prosecutorial power. There's so many things that are wrong here. And think about that, because the GOP gets, in the primary, the GOP gets to decide, the parties get to decide, what kind of process they're going to have. And it would be one thing if Trump had been facing federal charges of insurrection. By the way, that would have been a much bigger story. And Colorado probably wouldn't even be the consideration that it is here. But they're citing insurrection under the 14th Amendment, and it doesn't apply because he wasn't charged with it. And it doesn't get to apply just because you say so.
The justices, this is from the Wall Street Journal, the justices claim the 14th Amendment is self-executing, which means the ballot disqualification doesn't require a conviction in court. Yet, the Senate acquitted Mr. Trump of the impeachment charge of insurrection. And Mr. Smith, the special counsel, didn't include insurrection under the U.S. Criminal Code in his 4-count indictment of Mr. Trump. Does anyone think the hard-bitten Mr. Smith would shy away from doing so if he thought he could prove it before a jury? The court's chief justice, this is in Colorado court, Brian Boatwright, cited the lack of a conviction for insurrection in his dissent from the Colorado majority. In a separate dissent, Justice Carlos Samore wrote that Mr. Trump was denied the procedural due process required before disqualification is justified. The 14th Amendment was written to guarantee due process for all Americans, not to deny it.
Exactly.
This is interesting. The Colorado 4 also, because we talked about, because you and I said yesterday, there are other areas that the court may look at it that we haven't even thought about yet.
Yeah, sure.
And they bring this up here. The Colorado 4 also do a legal dance around the fact that Section 3's disqualification clause doesn't expressly include the president.
The president, right.
As former Attorney General Mike McCaskey explained in these pages on September 8th, the clause applies only to those who have taken an oath as an officer of the United States. So Mr. Barr cannot be barred, or excuse me, Mr. Trump cannot be barred from the ballot. The Colorado majority's contrary reading of the clause will get careful scrutiny at the U.S. Supreme Court. The justices could decline to hear Mr. Trump's appeal, but given the legal and democratic stakes, they almost have to take it. This is the first time any state has used Section 3 to disqualify a presidential candidate, but if it stands in Colorado, it won't be the last. A broad definition of insurrection would open the door for other potential candidates to be disqualified depending on their participation in controversial political protests. 866-90-RED-I.
This report is brought to you by Shell Rotella. With advanced synthetic technology, is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance. Electrical systems are one of the most common causes of winter breakdowns. So when your batteries talk, it's important you listen. Keep an eye out for the warning signs that may indicate your electrical system needs attention to help avoid getting stuck out in the cold this winter. The most obvious sign that a battery-related issue is present is if your truck has trouble cranking at the proper speed. If you experience any sluggishness when starting your engine, get a full electrical system check from a trusted service provider.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90-RED-I.
In Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. I noticed that the CNN brought in Republicans that are anti-Trump yesterday to see if they could, maybe get a different spin. John Bolton came in, Bill Barr. Both said, well, Bolton said it was incoherent and SCOTUS will reverse.
Yeah.
And Barr said the exact same thing.
Yeah.
It's like they were trying to find somebody on that side. There is no argument for it. It's bogus.
No.
It's unconstitutional what they did. And you rarely get a situation where you have a dissent as strong from Democrats against Democrats.
Right.
Santa knows if they've been naughty or nice. Eric Harley and Gary McNamara on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. You said it that the left doesn't care about the law, doesn't care about the Constitution. We've said this in the past, and I would go further than the left. I would say a significant portion of Democrats don't care about it. Now, I won't say all Democrats because, as you and I have talked about, you have right now in this country some of the people making the best what are normally known as great conservative constitutional arguments are all Democrats. Mm-hmm. And that is the Barry Weisses, the Michael Schellenbergers, the Matt Taibbi's, the Alan Dershowitzes, the Jonathan Turleys.
Well, even the three dissenting opinions
even the three, yeah, exactly, great point.
The Colorado Supreme Court, it's because they know, and, during the break I was reading it was a New York Times headline, they called it an explosive ruling, and it's like, okay, these people don't care about the law. They just don't. At first I said they don't know the law, and then I said, no, actually, they don't care about the law. Because they only use it, again, to get what they want done. They want to do away with the Senate. They've talked about that for a long time. They don't care about the process. They don't care about the very fundamental system we have in place until something gets close to the fire. And I think that's what you're seeing in these three dissenting opinions. I think it's quite possible, I don't know, but I think it's quite possible these judges, including the Chief Justice of the Colorado Supreme Court, see this and say, this is dangerous. And that's the problem. When I say get close to the fire, it's like, okay, even just assume that Chief Justice is hell-bent to change the law from the bench, something like that comes right back at the Democratic Party, and all of a sudden it's retaliation time in the red states, and then it just never ends. If that were to stand, I don't think it's going to stand. I think the Supreme Court of the U.S. is going to overturn this.
Now, I want to make this clear. We've talked about that there are Democrats that don't agree with it, as you see from example for the three justices and the names that we remember. I did not see one Democrat yesterday come out and say this is legally bogus. I'm talking about a congressperson.
In office, somebody in office.
Yes, somebody, not one.
Yeah.
And it's obvious that it is. Jonathan Turley, again, one of the problems is when you first read something, like when he had to scan it, when he was talking about it yesterday because it came out, and this thing was, it was over 200 pages long, and you have to run through it as he did. I think he came out stronger against it yesterday in his column in themessenger.com when he said, even on a court composed entirely of justices appointed by Democratic governors, Colorado Supreme Court split 4-3 on the question. The majority admitted that this was a case of first impression and that there was sparse authority on the question. Yet the lack of precedent or clarity did not deter these justices from making new law to block Trump from running. Interesting point. He says they made new law.
Yeah, right.
Indeed, the most controlling precedent appears to be, and he goes through more legal stuff there. I don't want to go through it because it gets quite complicated here. But he said the court majority used a long dormant provision of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment, the disqualification clause that was written after the Civil War, to bar former Confederate members from serving in the U.S. Congress. In December of 1865, many in Washington were shocked to see Alexander Stephens, the Confederacy's one-time vice president, waiting to take the same oath that he took before joining the Southern Rebellion. Hundreds of thousands of Americans had just died after whole states seceded into their own separate nations with its own army, navy, foreign policy, and currency. So Congress declared that it could bar those who have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies. January 6, 2021 was many things, all of them bad. However, it was not an insurrection. It was a protest that became a riot, not a rebellion. Karl Rove talks about also, if you saw his column on it, not a Trump fan either, just so people know, because then you start talking about the law. The reason we bring that up is because then it's like, okay, what are we know they don't like Trump. Well, then why are they saying that this is wrong? Because it's not the law.
Right.
And he talks about how eventually, they ignored that part of the law. I think it was like in the 1870s, and all these, and nobody fought it. All these Southern Confederate soldiers that were pretty, and some pretty high up in the Confederacy ended up running for Congress and winning, and they allowed that to happen.
Yeah.
At that point. So when you actually look at the history of it, and then you look at the evidence and compare how it was applied. Clearly, if you secede from the nation, that you secede, you form your own country. For example, eventually when we secede here in Texas and we form our own army, which will be much stronger than the rest of the country because that will be under liberalism and they will defund the military. Oh, this is fun. Yeah. But if, hypothetically, Texas secedes, all right, and then Texas goes to war with the United States.
Right. Starting with California?
Well, certainly it's not going to be Oklahoma.
Listen, all we want is most of San Diego and Kern County. We can settle this at the table. We're Texas.
We just want
Don't mess with Texas.
We just want southern, very, very southern California.
Yeah.
When we say southern, we mean San Diego.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Kern County.
Right.
Maybe Orange County.
We'll take Orange County.
But
definitely take Orange County.
But the point is, you have the actually back then when you looked at the Confederacy, the legal documents.
Yeah,
you were at war. Hundreds of thousands of people died. These were people that were in the Confederacy, high up, many in the military, killing Americans.
Right.
It was calculated. The evidence was irrefutable.
Right.
And even 10 years later, they backed off in it. You don't have that with Trump. You never had that with Trump.
No.
And so you're making up. But again, this isn't surprising. What all they're simply doing is redefining as they do as liberals and a significant portion of Democrats do. They simply change the definition of a word.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's and then apply the word repeatedly. That's what you do. And then if it doesn't fit your narrative, then you change the definition of the word or you debate the definition of the word. And if you have any questions there, see the debate or the back and forth between Rand Paul and Anthony Fauci. And those are the approaches by the left. You've got to change the word, the definition, or what qualifies as definition, and then over and over and over again use that same word, in this case, insurrection.
This from and Jonathan. This is again Jonathan Turley, a Democrat. Indeed, despite the unrelenting efforts of many in the media and Congress, a post-January 6 Harvard study, after removing the anti-Semitism. Okay, I threw that in there. A post-January 6 Harvard study found most of the rioters were motivated by support for Trump or concerns about election fairness, not by a desire to rebel.
But was the study plagiarized?
Oh my God!
We have to find out.
She's gonna get fired over the study.
She's gonna listen. all the stuff you plagiarized, and then your radical behavior and demonstration there on Capitol Hill, that we can tolerate. This, no, we can't tolerate that. That's, look, there is no way to win this. And we talked about it briefly yesterday, maybe a couple of times, that the Supreme Court of Colorado, or these 4 justices that made this decision, the majority here, it almost feels like they know this is going to be overturned.
Yeah, we said that yesterday, and I saw there were some comments on that by saying this is really weird. It's almost like they know it's going to be overturned, but they need to make the statement.
Well, see, that's it. Because you can make the statement. The New York Times. It's an explosive ruling. Not if you know the law. Not if you care about the law.
Well, it's explosive in the fact that people are upset about it.
Yeah,
extremely upset.
I wouldn't say explosive to that end. Probably wasn't what they were meaning. They were probably, right. The New York Times is looking at it as, what was the word? Oh, bombshell that everybody was using for, it seemed like, far too long. But the problem is that you're not paying attention to the law. You're not paying attention to the Constitution. And you can, this will get people talking. Boom. Even if you know it's going to be overturned. Nobody, by the way, no one was asking for a stay. But a stay was granted by the court, pending the decision from the High Court to review it. And I felt that was interesting because, all right, is that another indicator that they know this is going to be overturned? Here, we'll just send it upstream. It feels like they knew they weren't going to win this in the long run, or that they know. And they won't. I don't believe they will. If SCOTUS allows this,
it's going to be a nightmare then
to stand.
Yeah, it's going to be a nightmare.
All bets are off for every election going forward.
Yep.
Left, right, Green Party, the No Goals Party, or whatever they're called.
Well, here's one. Kamala Harris raising bail for what the violence that was happening in the cities, destroying all the cities.
Right.
And she was raising money to get those people back out on the street again.
Joe Biden changing the definition of amnesty and or not amnesty, but asylum. You change the law, and then we were talking about it. And I think it was in the pre-show meeting with the one woman who's been given a court date in 2031.
2031, right?
Well,
I'm trying to base this strictly on insurrection.
Okay, sure.
That was
by working against the interest of your sworn duty.
Oh yeah. That's impeachment. Does that disqualify you from running? You can impeach and you can remove somebody.
I don't know.
But they can run again.
I don't know. Does insurrection apply here? That's my point. It doesn't. So if you've got people saying,
it doesn't,
if they can do that, then we can do this. It opens it to interpretation. Is my point.
Yeah, because this wasn't. There is no evidence that exists that Trump was involved in organizing an insurrection.
Not even close. Well, and he wasn't charged with anything.
No. 866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. A couple of stories out there, more info from the Census Bureau on the movement of population in states. What was interesting was there was also a Los Angeles Times story that I saw that was talking about the number of wealthy people moving from the states. And it's not the concern for many of these blue states is not that you would have, not the total number of people moving, but the number of rich people moving.
We talked about that, and that's the first thing we, pointed out is that the people who can afford to move easily are the ones that are going to be moving in great numbers.
And we'll tell you what the problem is for those blue states coming up.
Top of the Hour News is brought to you by House Products. Visit houseproducts.com.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. We is me and he. I'm Gary McNamara. He's Eric Harley. Hi. That was loud. Hi. Hello. I am looking here for the white Christmas map.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm just went into Google looking for, because sometimes they'll have that out, the white Christmas map for.
Yeah, it looks like the mountain regions, I think, at least as we, head into the weekend, it could change. But it doesn't look like for anything east of the Mississippi. I didn't see. I saw one map, by the way, to be clear, and it didn't show any snow for most of those who normally get snow around this time of year. This is going to be fairly rare for you, right? Going into Buffalo, where there's either no snow on the ground and no snow in the forecast, right? I mean, usually it's one or the other, that there's either snow that's going to fall or recently fell and it's on the ground.
Yeah, or recently fell, or it's very close that you'll at least get, some snowflakes. There's nothing. And I'm happy about that, because last year I couldn't get in. Last year is when they had that snowfall.
Yeah.
Right up to that night before. I'm all packed, ready to go, and it's like, I don't think I'm going to be able to get in. Mm-hmm. The snow wasn't supposed to start till that morning, though, the next morning. And I think I left on the 23rd. Yeah, I left on the 23rd then, too.
Yeah.
Or I was supposed to leave. I remember talking to my sister, and she goes, have they canceled your flight? And that one wasn't a direct one. I had a flight through Charlotte. And then about 7 o'clock that night, they canceled the Charlotte to Buffalo flight, because they were canceling everything. And then they closed the airport, I believe, probably around, 6, 7 a.m.
Yeah.
When the snow started. By 11 a.m. when I was supposed to get in, I would not have been able to get in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and my sister was still, and I told her the flight's been canceled. Oh, come on, you can find a way in. A day later, she's saying, man, you ought to be pretty lucky you didn't get in.
Yeah.
And that was, really, people didn't get out. I know some people that got in that didn't get out till January 5th or 6th.
Wow.
That had gone in before Christmas. That normally doesn't happen. So I'm always, I've always my entire life loved going back there, and you have just enough snow, not enough to stop. I mean, you need a lot of snow to close that airport in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. You need a lot of snow. So it's like I like a little bit of snow because I like the white Christmas. This year, I don't care. Just get me in to see my dad. That's all I care about.
Yeah, sure.
It's like snow, and it's really amazing how quickly I switched. Now, I don't know if you remember last year. So what happened was last year I couldn't get in. And so normally I don't go in January. Like this year, I have no plans to go back in January because I just, I just don't want to take the chance. The weather can get too bad.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I'll be back middle of February is when I'm going back. And then, it's the normal going back every 3 weeks almost. But I just don't go in January. But last year after that was canceled, I said, well, let me try going in. You know what happened? This is Martin Luther King weekend. We had a 3-day weekend.
Yeah.
And I went back there, and it was almost as if in the weekends in January, people were expecting all their relatives to come in who couldn't make it on Christmas because everybody had their Christmas lights up.
Yeah.
It was like, January, you're talking January, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, around there.
Right.
Everybody had it up. Christmas trees. I was like, whoa. And I remember I was driving to see my great-nephew play a basketball game, and I couldn't believe it. I'd gotten in that afternoon and was driving to go see him play ball, and I'm like, everybody's got their Christmas lights up.
Yeah.
And then Christmas night. Christmas night. The Sunday of that weekend, it wasn't Christmas night, the Sunday of that weekend, I can still remember leaving my sister's house, probably about 11:30, and I had an early morning flight back. But we're all walking out. The snow is, it's still like there's 4 feet of snow, 5 feet of snow still on the ground.
Yeah, I remember the stories coming out of it.
But everybody had their Christmas lights up. It was just, I told my sister and my dad, I said, I didn't miss Christmas.
Yeah.
It felt like it was Christmas.
Right. Yeah.
What was it, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
But I'd rather not go through that again.
Well, I would rather also the anybody that because it was just a bad deal all the way around.
Oh, that's
I remember the stories coming out of it. People just and other some that were stranded. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible for them. So hopefully we're not going to have any of that this year.
And they, the comparisons that was worse than the blizzard of 77.
Well, you lived through the blizzard of 77.
Yeah, that was. I was in college, and it wasn't the same because what happened last year was actual snowfall.
Not the dumping of the lake of, or this. It wasn't lake effect snow. It was snow that had fallen on the lake.
Right.
In 77.
Right. What happened was it got so cold so quickly that the lake froze early, but it froze early. So all the snow that we were getting, there was significant snow piled up, and because my grandfather died like 10 days before the blizzard of 77.
Oh.
And we went to I remember going to the hospital in middle and early January with my mom.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare trying to get there. There was like a major snowfall just a week before. And so then what happened was the entire lake was frozen, probably, I don't know, anywhere between 5 and 10 feet of snow. It drifted there, and you had hurricane-like winds, 70, 75-mile-an-hour winds come, take that snow off Lake Erie, blow it right onto the city of Buffalo. And that's why you had 30 and 40-foot drifts.
Yeah.
I'll never forget going through where I grew up and was living at the time, which is a suburb of Buffalo called the town of Tonawanda. And it means a town of swift water. It's right near, it borders, the Niagara River about 7 miles above Niagara Falls. So that's what the
You don't get more swift than that water.
Well, it's pretty. You boat there and everything else. You really don't worry until you get about half mile from the falls.
Oh, okay. All right.
Where it really, because it's deeper, and then it gets very shallow as you get closer to the falls where you have the rapids. But but it's still swift, though. You're talking probably, I'm going to guess 7 mile an hour current, which is fast.
That's quick.
That's a quick, yeah, it really is. 6-7 miles an hour. I'm guessing that's what it probably is once you get closer, to the falls.
If you're on a kayak and a canoe, you're going to notice you're going to be moving. That's pretty quick.
Well, the other thing people don't understand is, because this is when I tell people, they go, "Come on." And I don't know if it's probably the Army Corps of Engineers. I'm not sure, but there's a thing called the ice boom. Now, everybody from Western New York and Southern Ontario know about the ice boom.
Right.
They actually take an ice boom made of logs and chains, and they the mouth of the Niagara River, where Lake Erie flows into the Niagara River, they actually put this huge ice boom up to keep the ice out of the Niagara River so it doesn't clog up downstream the intakes for the hydroelectric plants, the Surratt and Beck, and then on the Canadian side and then the American side, it doesn't clog up the intakes that fill the reservoirs, which are lakes, man-made lakes, which then they fill that during the they fill it. They fill that overnight. They fill that overnight. So during the day, they take the majority of the water to go through the hydroelectric plants from the lakes, and Niagara Falls can be Niagara Falls. They take much more water overnight because it's night, and the lights shine, but you don't see the same, and they want more of a flow during the day. In fact, they've done it before, people that have gone over the falls or get trapped in a boat, something like that, and they're heading down, they'll actually open up all the gates in order to suck a significant part of that water out of there. Now, they can't stop it completely, but they can actually get to the point where the boat will ground itself.
Oh, wow.
So, when I tell people that, they go, come on. But there's an ice boom at the mouth of the Niagara River that keeps all the ice not all the ice, but the vast majority of the ice in Lake Erie.
Right.
And then they take it down, probably April, whatever. And
yeah.
But that's what happened then. And so it was a nightmare. But I remember going through where I learned to golf at the Brighton Golf Course in the town of Tonawanda, right outside of Buffalo. Mm-hmm. And we went through in the suburbs back then. You couldn't park. You can't park in the streets in the suburbs.
Right.
And so, because you've got to park in driveways, so the plows are always coming down. Mm. In the city of Buffalo, like a lot of northeastern cities, when they built those homes, people didn't have cars. There were no driveways. Oh. So they all park in the street, and then they can't get through. No plows can get through because all the cars are there. That's why it was such a nightmare and can be such a nightmare for northeastern cities, especially cities like Cleveland and Buffalo, when they get hit with major snowstorms.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget driving with we had to go and drive around. We're in college. Come on. Everything was closed.
Sure.
But the roads, it was like almost a 30-foot tall cave because it was the walls were straight up from the plows, and then it started drifting over. Almost looked like a
tunnel.
A stadium.
Yeah.
A stadium where you have the opening at the top, there's like you've got partial coverage of the seats of the road from both sides as it's drifting over. Mm. So that was that
must have been surreal.
It was.
And there was no real melting effect for a while.
No, because it was probably minus 3 degrees below zero. It was really cold then, at that point. But as I said, we had Frizola here, because we've talked about it in Texas. Mm-hmm. Then went all the way down into Mexico. That was. Let's put it this way: coming from Buffalo, I was quite impressed.
Del Rio got
by how
nearly
horrible
a
that
foot
was.
of snow.
Yeah.
When I lived in Del Rio, not once did we see. One time in San Antonio, we got snow. And I was born in Omaha. So we had sleds, we had, toboggans and everything. And so we had our street was on a hill. So it was great, perfect. But it was the one, I don't remember snow any other time we lived there. I know that it has snowed other times there. But Del Rio in Freeze-Pocalypse it was 11 inches? That's the pictures coming out of Del Rio were insane. Insane. And, that was one of those things where that impact was, all right, here's what you prepare for. When we were talking about ERCOT, the state of Texas, and everything else, you prepare for 130 degrees in the summer, and you prepare for a long-term freeze in the winter. You were talking about the one winter when you were in Marshall,
Texas,
84, 85.
I think, yeah.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And I know that I was in a small town northwest of here, a couple hours, Wichita Falls, and I was in radio. And me and the guy that was on the other station, the sister station, after we both got off the air, we went out and walked across this frozen pond, which was stupid because we didn't know how thick the ice was or how thin the ice was, more importantly. But we did it anyway. It's, that we were at there was a period of 4 or 5 days that 5 above was the high. It didn't get above 5 degrees. And I think to myself, this is what freeze-pocalypse is the perfect example. You prepare for that. I wasn't a great Boy Scout, but that's the one thing I learned, be prepared.
Yeah.
And if you're an energy state, it should be no problem at all. It's like going to a steakhouse. Sorry, we only have salads.
Well, I'll say this, that, Frizola in Texas was actually worse than the blizzard of 77 because the power never went off.
Oh, in Buffalo, it never went off?
No, it never went off.
Wow.
No, it never went off.
That's crazy.
No,
and by the way, there was snow
and it never,
up to the power lines. I mean, drifts.
Oh, yeah. It never went off last year. I mean, and everything was shut down there for over probably 10 days.
That's what's wrong.
Yeah, it's the power never went out. I mean, the power never should have gone out here in Texas.
Right.
Should have never gone out.
Ever. The natural gas thing shouldn't happen.
But it is a warning to the rest of the country.
And it's a warning, by the way, to the leaders of the state of Texas. And we talked about that.
Yeah, the insanity. Now we have to subsidize every form of energy for power.
Just insane.
866-90 Red Eye.
Brought to you by FPPF, Fuel Power Max.
Independents with carrier authority should be mindful that negotiation strength varies as the week progresses. Typically, the highest rates across major segments are paid for loads negotiated on Sundays, and the highest volume of loads for all segments is seen on Mondays. Also, the weekday that tends to be the best for flatbed negotiations, yielding the best rates. Owner-operators tend to have less negotiation strength on Tuesday, which shows the lowest weekday spread between brokers' offered rates and actual paid rates. Broker offers tend to rise by Wednesday as the end of the week is in sight. This day also seems optimal for the 3 o'clock hustle, so-called for its reliance on that afternoon time of day, when brokers are getting nervous, to improve negotiation strength. Stay mindful of this system to maximize your revenue. Brought to you by Shell Rotella, with advanced synthetic technology is designed to help keep your rig running with more mileage and less maintenance.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Merry Christmas. I went. I searched for White Christmas. I think NOAA put out their predictions on Monday, but they didn't base it on the weather forecast. They based it on, the most likelihood of averaging from like 1990 something to 2020, and I'm like, well, that's useless.
Yeah, right.
It's completely useless. So.
Yeah,
but I did see a couple of articles, headlines saying most of the United States will not see snow.
Right. Yeah. The map I saw earlier really looked like the mountains, just the Rockies and those areas, but the majority of the country not seeing snow, which means hopefully safer travel for everyone. And I think we all know what what a white Christmas looks like. What's weird is over the last, 12 years or so, we've actually here in Texas, North Texas, we've actually had 2 or 3 white Christmases. On one occasion, the snow started on Christmas Day around 1 or 2 in the afternoon, and it was coming down in huge clumps, as I remember, because I remember the guys we were going to stay home and after dinner and clean up, and then the ladies all wanted to go see a movie, and we're like, that's a chick flick, we're not going. But they went to a movie, and we stayed and cleaned up, and they said they had to come out and scrape so much snow off their cars a couple hours later. But yeah, we've had a few white Christmases here.
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. I want everybody to know that this next story is not from the Babylon Bee. All right?
Okay.
This story is not made up. You will find, just in the direction we've been going in this country right now, you may find that this story is not believable. But I'm telling you, it is. And it's from here, not very far from our studios.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right.
The South Lake, Texas School Board, the school board president, announced this week that they will be referring to the Christmas break as a Christmas break and not a holiday break during discussion about the district's 2024-25 calendar, which was approved at a December 18th board meeting. He said he had heard from some teachers and administrators and parents that they were afraid to openly recognize this holiday on campuses viewed because of retribution. He said, I have, as I'm sure we all have, received several correspondence this month from districts referring to a winter break, winter parties, holiday break, holiday parties, everything but Christmas break and Christmas parties. Brian said, it's Christmas and New Year's break. And I think the district should refer to it as such. He cited the House Bill 308, signed into law in 2013. For God's sakes, the fact that you have to have a law for this is just unbelievable, but that's where we are. The 2013 law, which states a school district may educate students about the history of traditional winter celebrations. Nobody celebrates winter except in the north and at ski resorts.
Yeah. Right.
No, maybe some Chamber of Commerce's try to push it on you, but people really don't celebrate winter except if you live in the north.
Yeah.
Because you can't get out of it.
Right.
It's like, okay, what the heck? It's happening. We might as well celebrate it. And most of that is done inside drinking.
Heavily.
A school district may educate students about the history of traditional winter celebrations and allow students and district staff to offer traditional greetings regarding the celebrations, including Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy Holidays in making the request.
Yeah.
That is the law in Texas, so therefore I want every ISD student, teacher, administrator, and parent to know it's okay to recognize and observe this holiday on our campuses if you so choose.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, the humorous thing is nobody gets off for winter. And George Carlin was right when he talked about political correctness taking you further away from the truth. Well,
Yeah,
it's
right.
winter break.
Yeah.
No, it's not a winter break. It's a Christmas, New Year break. That's what it is.
Well, what's interesting is we just had my wife's holiday party in South Lake last Saturday night. I'm going to show you on my phone so you can see and confirm it to
All
the
right.
audience.
Okay. Let me
See that?
let me look.
See it?
Holiday party.
See
Holiday.
it?
Yeah. Well, I have no problem if you say, for example, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year. We've done it. It's the holidays. There's no problem with that.
Hanukkah, that.
Right,
yeah.
Hanukkah. Right, exactly. You take Hanukkah.
But avoid walking around.
All depending on the context.
Yeah, exactly. Walking around,
We're being
you say
sarcastic,
holiday
folks.
season,
Right.
it's like, okay, because there are multiple in there. That's fine. I'm just grateful the SWAT team in South Lake didn't move in. But I'm joking. I love South Lake, actually. It's a beautiful part of North Texas. It's gorgeous. I can't afford to live there, but it's great.
Oh, did you see that?
I drive through in my truck, and they're like, "Are you here to do the construction project?" And, no,
Did you see
holiday party.
Fox on their front page?
Yeah.
Fox News, whole thing about the grapevine, about being the
Grapevine, Texas,
Grapevine, Texas,
which
being
is
the winter wonderland.
yeah. It's what is it? The most Christmassy town in America? Is that what they voted?
It is.
Yeah. Well, no. If you go into the square, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Here it is. Christmas capital of Texas celebrates the holidays with 1,400 plus events over 40 days.
Now we have a friend that's lived in that area for a very long time, actually. Not very far from that square. Now, she's far enough away that I don't think the traffic and people looking for parking would be a problem for her. We've never addressed it specifically, but over the years, we love going there. I mean, but just know you're going to spend a minute trying to find parking.
Well, when I went last week, or 2 weeks ago to see an afternoon show, a matinee.
Yeah.
At the Palace Theater. And it was a Christmas show, and it was great. I mean, I loved every bit of it. I loved walking through, but I didn't know where to park.
Right, yeah.
I hadn't been there in a while.
And it is one of those where, those lots and buildings and everything in that immediate area have really been preserved in terms of how they're laid out. You're not going to see this massive parking lot, and which is a good thing, I think. If I were to live in that town, it's not what you want to see. But if you're looking for parking, then you just I learned that the hard way the first couple of times, actually, we went there. One time I actually went there alone, and I was just going to a restaurant. And then the second time, it was like, okay, I forget the celebration. It was actually during the summer. It was like, okay, we need to, now that I know where I'm going. I just hadn't been to that area. You live in a major metro area. There could be, anything west of 360, I get lost. And while this isn't west of 360, it's still not an area that I used to that I was used to going to.
I mean, it's in the populated area, except because it's just north. Northwest of the airport. Right?
It's in fact
or more west.
The airport is in technically Grapevine, right? Or is it Fort Worth? Fort Worth, yeah.
But it is like going to a Hallmark town, but with a lot more people.
Well, with the
you need a lot more extras.
Soon, or at one point, the airport will be in Grapevine, Dallas, Fort Worth,
Oklahoma City,
Del Rio. They're expanding.
They're adding a sixth terminal.
I know.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Now I have no problem navigating that airport. Once you know it, it's a piece of cake.
I'm the family pro, so if anybody's coming in from out of town and they're flying through DFW, they need to go to the airport. They're driving to DFW from outside the area. A lot of times, I will help them navigate it because I don't have any issues whatsoever with it.
Yeah.
But it's, because I've been doing it so long. But it's just sprawled out. I mean, that airport, it's kind of intimidating. In fact, I see it on the, there were some colleagues that were, flying through one time. And so there had been a gate change on their connecting. Well, it was also a terminal change. And it was like, okay, well, how do I, and I was like, okay, I'll walk you when we get off the plane. I'll walk you to, the rail that gets you, the train that gets you to the next terminal. And it's very easy, once you know what you're doing. But it's intimidating.
I actually always go to one terminal, no matter where my gate is, because when it's what the TSA security checkpoint, nobody ever in line.
Right.
I mean, maybe one or two people.
Yeah.
So I go through there and just go right up and catch the monorail, whatever you want to call it.
Chicago O'Hare was intimidating my first time. And then after I went through it, and it was like, because my connecting was, it was like 30 minutes. I didn't have any time at all.
Oh,
I was like, I don't know where I'm going.
Oh. So were you running just like they were in
Home
Alone?
I was shouting Kevin.
Just running through there?
Yeah, I was shouting Kevin for no reason.
Now, because they have the direct flights, I don't go to O'Hare as much. So I can't see if they have their holiday tree this year.
Yeah, right.
Again.
Yeah.
But every time I'd be in there around the holidays, just thinking Home Alone, because you're in that section in the terminal right there, and you're just like, this is so Home Alone-ish, because that's where they filmed it.
Yeah.
Which was great. I just wonder when they did it. What time did they do that?
I always wonder that. Or if they do a scene in a major metro area downtown, because for a couple of movies, they had to, I forget the movie I'm thinking of, they had to basically shut down the streets.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a set. And it was early. I know that it was early morning. And they probably did it on a Sunday. But, yeah, you have to shut everything down. But in that, they didn't. There were people around them. I know you have extras, but I'm guessing you don't clear out an airport for that, right?
Yeah, unless you did it very, very. But then again, very early in the morning, it's because it looked like it was light outside.
Yeah.
O'Hare, unless it's 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning,
right?
There's people all over the place.
I've been at DFW getting off a plane, and there is nothing open. Nobody is there.
Oh yeah.
It's just you and people getting off your plane.
I've got in a couple of times at 3 a.m. and you walk through the air. It's completely dead.
Right.
Just and everybody goes their own way, and you're like, wow, there's nobody here.
Mm-hmm.
Just so you know, I did see a story. I got to find it. I scanned it yesterday. It just popped into my head now. I got to find it. The McAllisters were part of the top 1%.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Wage earners.
Of course. Of course.
Oh, man, it's make-believe.
Would you just...
Well, what's wrong with... Because John Hughes did that, right?
Yeah.
Yes, John Hughes, yeah.
Just enjoy the movie. If you don't have to watch the movie. Because if you're tearing it apart, it's like all those vegans screaming at McDonald's for years.
Yeah.
They're not doing this for you. Keep driving. Not relevant to you. They need to change their menu to a healthier menu. Why? So you'll go there? You're not going there.
Exactly. The perfect example of people are complaining about a product that they would never buy.
Exactly.
Well, we're trying to protect you.
Yeah. They have to complain. They were part of the 1%. Yeah, and you're part of the whiners.
The whiny 1%. What's worse, the top 1% or the whining 1%?
Seems like it's more than 1% for the whiners. It's like it's growing.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Hurley, and I'm Gary McNamara. We were talking about, places that might see a white Christmas, and not a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I went to the Weather Channel, and they have the worst airports for weather. Now, I didn't know this. This surprised me.
Yeah.
The worst one is Newark.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
Newark is the worst. San Francisco is second.
Wow.
Weather issues, low cloud, fog, and wind. You never think about that, do you? I mean, it's just,
right.
You always
Yeah,
assume it's going to be that,
it's going to be ice or snow, right? Yeah.
Chicago number 3.
Yeah.
All right.
But even in the summer, Chicago can be tricky because there are, dangerous thunderstorms that come through that region.
Yeah. Oh,
I've
been
been
delayed
on
many times. Yeah.
I have been on a plane on the tarmac at O'Hare, and they were going to try and get in the sky, but the entire sky was just dark.
Yeah.
And the pilot came on and said, "Sorry, folks, we're not going to take off." So we got off that plane and rented a car and had to drive the rest of the way. But yeah, O'Hare's pretty bad.
Denver number 5, Boston number 6, JFK number 7, Dallas number 8. That's simply thunderstorms.
That's thunderstorms.
Right.
Yep.
Philadelphia number 9. George Bush, Houston.
Yeah.
Number
Thunderstorms
10.
again.
Yeah.
And maybe some tropical storms or named storms occasionally. That's not going to be the case, most of the time. It's thunderstorms.
And as I mentioned, even with the thunder or the winter storms they have, Buffalo rarely closes. They've got all they have is 2 runways, and they've got. I mean, they're out there constantly. Right. I mean, they never stop on those runways. Plowing them when it starts snowing.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Good morning. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas to one and all.
This is the time, especially if you have a young family, you're probably you're going crazy right now trying to get everything done for Monday.
Well, I'll say this. I ran some Christmas errands with 3 of my grands yesterday, and it was so much fun. It cost me a lot of money. And I told their mother, my lovely daughter, I was like, it was worth it. I got 2 hours with 3 of my granddaughters. It was worth it. But it was. So we got to this place where we were going just after 10 o'clock, probably 10:20, 10:25 a.m. The place opens at 10 a.m., right?
Mm-hmm.
Already a couple of people in there, but I was like, okay, when I pulled up, parking lot wasn't full. We were there for a little bit, and then all of a sudden, there was just a steady line of people coming in. And I was like, number one, I'm glad we got here when we did. And number two, it was, all right, at least on items like this, it was electronics. I guess, this is the time, if you're going to buy it for Christmas time and you haven't already, you got to get it done, you got to get it set up, and that whole thing. By the way, I don't miss that part about being a parent, on putting, toys together and things like that. I think the one thing that was most frustrating was one of the, like Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese had the basketball thing, and then the basketball comes back down to you, and it's electronic and the whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
We got one for the home, and I still, to this day, don't know why we got it. for one of the kids years ago, and that took me forever. I mean, it seems like 12, 15 hours of work. But these days, it's like, okay, if you buy electronics, activation is almost nothing. It's so easy to do. And that's about all kids want, except for my youngest grandchild. He's 4.5. So he still wants actual toys, tangible toys. He can navigate a phone easily. He can program your phone. He can do he's got his own little tablet, kid's tablet. But, he also wants toys, actual toys. And so that part is easy. But I'm not I'm so glad I'm not because I really kind of took that on at Christmas, setting up everything, arranging everything, and now it's easy. We don't do anything close to that. Yesterday, I ordered the catering and that for Christmas Eve, which is when we're going to do our Christmas, and that was simple. Did that online, and it was like, all right, not too bad. I was impressed that I remembered to get it done because I had been not lazy, but it was just in this mode of not having to, when you've got so much to do, it's like, okay, I got to get organized. And when there's almost nothing to do, you don't think about it as much. And then I was like, I better do that now. Yesterday, I was like, I better get these things done and out of the way. Don't want to do that on Sunday.
I plan everything so early now that it's, I guess as you get older, you just learn to, take care of it earlier. But I remember my parents scrambling the last few days before Christmas. Mm-hmm. I mean, they'd be out shopping. They'd be out shopping probably 7 days before Christmas all the way to Christmas Eve.
I loved, actually, the running around part of it. The putting things together, that was an IKEA-level frustration.
Yeah, but that basketball game sounds like that would have been something I would have loved when I was a kid.
The thing is
that basketball game.
Thinking about it, I'm like, I was thinking to myself as I was saying it. Actually, funny enough that you said that. I never got anything close because it was exactly like you would see at a Dave & Buster's. It was huge, and we had a pool, but we also had a pool room, off of the house, and that's where we put it.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so it was, turned that into a game room, and it was just, it was fun.
Well, for me and my buddies, we got into the discussion on our group text the other day. That's something that's really happened in the last year for me.
Yeah.
My couple of my best friends group texting. I never did it before. And It's like every day somebody's commenting on something.
Yeah.
And you knew it was going to be the week before Christmas. It always comes up every year. It's the same conversation, but it's always worth having about how we all had the electric football games and nobody ever scored a touchdown.
Nobody ever scored.
And it was like, how the hell could they continue to market that year after year after year? Wasn't there any type of buzz that, look, you can't score a damn touchdown. The players go around in a circle.
If we had, think about this, if they came up with that game today, instant failure.
Oh, yeah.
They must have sold 1 billion of those.
I know.
And here's the difference. Social media, Google reviews, Amazon reviews.
Yelp.
Yeah. No, you're going to get destroyed immediately on that game. This is the worst game ever.
Now, even the basketball game, I don't know if you remember the basketball. The basketball had there were no players. There were 2 baskets on both ends, not the kind you're talking about, which is more of an arcade game, but the table game, and it would there would be little indentations, and the ball would roll there, and you would flip it out. The little flippers that would shoot at the basket,
right?
And that's how you. Yeah. Now, I never had one of those because
I remember seeing commercials. I think
the table hockey. I don't mean the air hockey, but the table hockey was the best.
Yeah.
For any young kid, that's what you wanted because that was the most realistic.
Now, the foosball or table hockey?
Table hockey.
Okay.
Foosball is soccer.
Yeah. That's right. It was soccer, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, Yeah, so
I knew it was one of those sports I didn't care about. But
foosball was
I like hockey.
foosball was fast soccer.
Well, wait a minute. But didn't
I don't remember.
they have a
Did they?
hockey version of that?
I don't.
I mean, the
remember
main
one.
version was soccer. All the players were European. You can tell. They were dressed like Europeans.
Yes.
What? They had a hockey version, didn't they?
Okay. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's a foosball air hockey.
No.
So you can play air hockey on it, or is it actually
like a dual purpose thing?
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right.
Okay, that's what it came up. Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea.
No, it's a dual. Yeah, that's really cool.
Foosball was pretty cool. It was pretty intense.
That was a big. I mean, that was huge at the bars.
Oh yeah. Well, Friends they were playing it.
Oh, I forgot about it. Yeah,
They had a foosball table
Well,
there in their kitchen.
after they got the recliners.
Yeah.
Remember they had the recliners and
exactly.
You know, the funny thing is, the only full episode I ever watched of Friends was the Thanksgiving one.
Yeah, yeah.
But even back then, I had seen the episode where I forgot which one, Chandler or
Joey.
I think Joey. Yeah, Joey got it because he was an actor and he got the big check, so he bought a recliner for both of them.
Yeah.
And they had the big TV, then they had the foosball, and it was like, we don't ever have to move again. And I think there was the things where they wanted the pizza guy to cut, and you said that a long time ago. They wanted the pizza guy to come all the way in and deliver it to the recliners that they were both in.
Exactly.
Why did all of us men relate to that immediately?
Exactly. I don't want to get up.
But no, foosball was huge. I knew it. Remember, there were foosball leagues at bars. I knew a friend of mine that was in a league.
Yeah. I was maybe too young for that.
And you were the team. I mean, you went against everybody else.
Right.
It's like, I can't do anything. Thursday night is foosball night. No, really.
Right.
No, Thursday night's foosball night.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. Okay. So,
yeah.
I played it a few times, but I never was really that into it.
Well, I wasn't good at it. You had to be fast. You had to be fast. And I just didn't care enough to get good at it. I didn't spend enough time. I didn't have a foosball table.
Yeah, you could never be good. You could never be good at electric football, no matter what you did.
Nobody was good at electric football. Wasn't good at electric football.
And remember, they had the field goal kicker, and the ball was like a piece of felt.
It was a piece of felt.
And you tried to kick I never made a field goal. I mean, nothing in that game.
I can't remember the field goal process.
Nothing in that game worked.
No,
nothing.
No.
The offensive lineman.
No, you were better off playing paper football. You know, folding a piece of paper into a triangle, holding your opponent would hold their fingers and thumbs up as the field goal.
Yep.
And then you just, kick it with your finger. That's much better game than the whole bogus magnetic football thing.
And then it would become, you'd get those moments where you're like, hope, because the offensive line would somehow push the defensive line to decide to go in a circle, and the opening would be there, and the running back would start heading towards the hole, and you're like, oh, maybe. Nah.
Yeah. Well, it's
1 yard past the line of scrimmage, starts doing the circle thing.
How was there not a class action lawsuit over that? You sold us crap. No.
Well, they sold it as Cleveland Browns football, so it had a sense of realism.
Nobody ever scores. Nothing ever goes anywhere. The team's never going to do anything.
I know, Cleveland, you're still in the race for the playoffs this year. And
good luck.
With the backup quarterbacks.
Yeah, good luck.
I have to take a shot at my Browns.
Look,
my Browns buddies. I got tons of friends that are from Cleveland. And
co-miserables.
Well, we talk about all the time?
Huh?
They are the only ones. I don't know of any other football team that's ever done this when they Remember the one year they went 0-16?
Yeah.
They actually held a parade for. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, that is absolutely. I still have so much respect for Cleveland Browns fans with the great history that they had. You go back, Jim Brown.
If you're that loyal,
everybody else, and then they went 0-16, and they held a parade.
Yeah, I'm always rooting for the underdog. So for the Browns to come away with a Super Bowl win would be one of those things. And then all of a sudden, instead of having a parade, they go, so what? It wasn't our goal. Clearly, it wasn't our goal. Yeah.
Yes. So when it came to games, the hockey game was really I think that was the gold. Growing up in the North, I mean, because hockey was huge.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, so that that game, and we actually had the game that wasn't just the metal players. We had the realistic looking players that had the detachable, like plastic stick. And we actually spent time trying to heat those sticks to curve the stick so we could lift the puck. We were never really that successful in doing it.
I had a friend who had that game. I didn't have the game, but I had a friend who had that game. I know I've played that game a few times. I know I did.
We played it all year long. I remember being in the backyard. We set up a table, and we actually had a competition with the neighborhood kids. This is during the summer.
Right.
We're out there with the table set up in our backyard, and we're playing table hockey.
Right. Yeah.
And it was never, it was so much fun. It was the most realistic because you could actually pass it. You could pass it from one side to the other.
Yeah.
You had to be quick, but it was really, you think about it, that was a pretty good game for hand-eye coordination.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then at the same time, you had to play goalie.
Yeah.
So the puck went to the other side. As you're controlling the other players, you got to just slap that little lever over to kick the goalie to the other side.
How was there not a movie about the creation and the research and development of that magnetic football game? Okay, guys, this is what we've got. They walk in and go, okay, we think kids will love this because all you were doing, you took the little felt football, tucked it under the arm of one of the players, and then you just turned on the switch. That's all you did.
And it would vibrate, and they would move.
It was the opposite of interaction.
Didn't we?
Interactive.
Didn't we talk about this like 15 years ago?
Probably.
And someone called us who said he was the head of an actual electric football league.
Maybe, yeah. I know we've talked about it before.
I thought that, or we got an email or something from somebody that actually was in a league.
See, that's the kind of league I could join. What do we got to do? Flip a switch?
But I can't remember if we asked him, well, does anybody ever score a touchdown? Or how did you get the players to move forward or do what you wanted it to do? But I remember we communicated with somebody who was in an electronic.
I remember one time screaming at the top of my lungs because the player was actually making progress. It was the wrong direction, but it was moving in a direction.
866-90 Red Eye.
Get in touch with Red Eye Radio, toll free at 866-90 Red Eye.
Red Eye Radio, he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. All right. I went to YouTube. The leagues exist out there.
Yeah.
They exist. Now, I went to one video that a TV station did in Kansas City a couple of years ago.
A report. Right.
And they never showed the players moving.
Right.
And it wasn't.
They just talked about the formation of the league, but didn't.
Right. Now, and then I found just a raw video of the Tri-State Electric Football from 2022, from February 2022, and I've just watched. I've watched a couple of plays. It didn't seem like their players were moving any better than we were.
Nothing has changed.
It's like they just have enough patience, so to do 100 or 200 plays, where we were done after about 5 plays. Going, this isn't going anywhere.
Okay, in today's world, there are very smart people. Now, I'm going to lay it out. Imagine if you could get a playbook of your own, right? So you're going to develop a playbook, right? This is almost going to be a combination of a video game and a physical game, okay? So as a team, you're going to say, we're going to run this play. It's going to set up. Now, this is where the engineering comes in. The game itself on the electronic field will actually determine how the players move, right? So your playbook, you click on that, and then the table itself is going to be programmed for that play, which will basically move the players in that direction. Nothing like what we're seeing here, but certainly worth playing. Right? I mean, where you come in and go, okay, we came up with this play. Because if you're going to do a league, that's great. If you got a hobby and that's going to be, awesome. But, man, do something. I mean, because I've got to think somebody could actually design that.
Well, where you could modern design for the vibration to be much more accurate than what we had in the 1960s, 1970s.
Here's how, exactly. When you turn it on, our team's going to do this, but the other team doesn't know. Well, their team has to be basically, has a defensive play in place right there, and their players are going to move accordingly.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like they've gotten to that level.
Well, they certainly haven't applied it. Maybe nobody cares with the advent of, Madden and everything else.
No, I mean in these leagues.
Yeah, no, I know.
These leagues.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Who's going to focus on it? Who cares, right?
Walking in a winter wonderland. Gary and Eric on Red Eye Radio.
And he's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. After tomorrow's show, which is our Christmas show, we will be out of here till, January 3rd, right? Yeah.
Which is the night of January 2nd into the morning of January 3rd.
Right.
It's a long break for us.
So you and I were just sitting here talking about, okay, what's going to happen? And, you're the one that said, I want to get to next year right away. Can we pass the holidays?
I'm so curious about what's going to happen in 24, but yeah.
And it's, you think about, I just started thinking about what's going to happen in the new year when I saw this. Biden offended Americans don't think he's serious about border security. And we have seen the polling numbers of the president that are absolutely in the toilet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're upset that Americans, they don't know whether to call it Bidenomics, the Biden economic plan. They don't know what to do. You and I and a lot of other people chuckling when they're sitting there go, why don't people understand? Why don't they understand? Why don't they understand that things are great? And as the Democratic pollster had to tell Jim Acosta the other day, price is stupid.
Yeah.
As Steve Leisman from CNBC, when we played that audio, we're just starting to learn.
Yeah.
We're learning here that people are paying more attention to prices than when we tell them that the rate of inflation is going down. Well, that's because the prices are still going up. And if I know it may be news to you, somebody who's been an economist for over 35 years.
Maybe he's a caveman economist. I don't know about your modern investment ways.
But I don't see a change. You think about the Colorado Supreme Court and what they did, and the defense of them as if what they were doing was legitimate yesterday, and it's not. We all know it's not. You know, you can look at the Democrat justices who dissented, all Democrat, all appointed by Democrats, not one Republican on that. And it was absolutely as originalist, constructionist, whatever you want to say about the original Constitution and what the insurrection clause is about, what the 14th Amendment is about. That the 14th Amendment is about due process, and you're doing the opposite. It's quite obvious if you know the law.
Right.
But a lot of Americans don't know the law. They have no idea what the law is.
Yeah, right.
And as we have stated before, every couple of years when the poll is taken, the majority of Americans can't even tell you the three branches of government. So they have no idea the system that's set up for checks and balances. They have no idea. They don't even know how it works. Our government sucks. How does it work? I don't know, but it sucks. And so I look at, you know, the administration trying to sell that Biden is offended that Americans don't think he's serious about border security. Oh, on day one, he went after. Well, no, on day one, what he did was he changed the asylum laws.
Yeah.
From day one.
Yeah.
From day one, he changed it. And when he's serious about border security, he's not serious about border security. Otherwise, you could stop it.
Well, in changing it, he also changed the burden of which was a federal burden of detention. Because if you're being detained and you know, up until that point, then that was the federal government's role. But that burden transferred in a huge way to the cities and states, just by saying, well, you know, we don't have enough detention housing for all of them, so we'll just do it this way. Well, they've got to have housing somewhere. And they changed all of that and created a massive burden. This is where I think Texas has some leverage if there is a court case based on Texas's new policy and law.
Well, you saw that because they weren't allowing the buses to stop at bus stations.
Yeah.
That now Governor Abbott is flying them into migrants into the airport who wish to go. And remember all the threats. Remember Gavin Newsom? Remember the whole thing, the kidnapping thing and human trafficking?
Yeah.
What happened to that? Well, it was all bogus.
It was all talk. Yeah.
It was all it was all bull.
Yeah, soup.
Bull soup. It was all of it was bull soup, as we know.
Exactly.
All of it. They had nothing there. And, you know, you've got because the Mayor Johnson in Chicago going crazy over about now what's going on and saying it's, you know, it's inhuman and everything else as to what's going on. Well, wait a minute. How is it inhuman to voluntarily ask people if they wish to go to a sanctuary city that will provide the benefits for them? How is that inhumane in any way?
Right.
You said, Chicago said, New York said, we're sanctuary cities. Come here. We will defy the federal government. We will not cooperate.
Right.
We will give you sanctuary. We will give you refuge. Oh, okay. Give them the opportunity to go there.
Some of the mayors were actually talking and saying those things. We welcome you here.
Yeah.
Here, you will be welcomed, and to the extent we will not use local resources to cooperate with federal officials.
But you see it across the board. You know, you've seen the goalpost move on inflation. You know, you've seen the goalpost move. You notice now the administration is not saying the border is secure. They can't do that anymore. And so as we look to next year, it's almost like inflation's Everything is compounded.
Yeah.
Compounded interest, but everything is compounded. And even Stanley Greenberg, the Democratic pollsters, told Jim Acosta, he goes, look, it's only going to get worse because now people are running out of money. The money's all gone. They're gone through their savings. They're hitting their credit limits now. They can't get credit. They've gone through their savings. You saw that the number of people that won't pay their college loans now. So people are running out of money.
Yeah.
And the fact is, it's not because they're unemployed. They're employed, and they're running out of money.
Right.
And they can't keep up.
Right.
And you BS people on inflation. You keep trying to tell people, well, how come people aren't recognizing that the rate of inflation's going down? Prices are going up.
Right.
The fact that they ignore that and pretend it doesn't exist and then become arrogant and accusatory towards the population that it's your fault because you don't recognize the great job we're doing from the problem that we caused. And so you look at all of that, and again, polling at this time of the year still, I think you get I think the best polls are a month out.
Yeah. Right.
I really do. Because then it becomes serious. People start getting ready to vote. And what will happen at that point, I don't know. But on every single issue, every single major issue, the liberalism has caused the problem. It's not that there's been an outside, natural disaster or another country attacking us. Everything in the United States that's going bad is self-inflicted because of the people that we have voted to be in office.
Yep. It's a choice.
It's a choice. We chose to be here. And if we chose to be here, those politicians they have to reverse everything. Well, think about identity politics. You and I have said the biggest, and you can apply this to everything. Once you go down the road to identity politics and you judge people by groups and not individuals, if you start judging them by individuals and that becomes your policy, everything that you believe in falls apart.
Yeah.
So they can't do that. And that's what you see now. And you're to the end game now of identity politics, I believe. And I say the end game because now you've got a opposition that is talking about it every single day. Every single day. The radical transgender movement, every single day you have an opposition. Anti-Semitism, every single day you have opposition to that and loud opposition to it. And so what happens is the other side is doubling and tripling down on their racism and bigotry, and you can't continue to pound that and be attacked and believe it's going to succeed. If it does succeed, we're done as a nation.
Yeah, right.
But I don't believe that most people are racist and bigoted. You know what? I did see the story. Let me just get the headline. And the first thought that came to my mind: when white people start believing critical race theory. As an article written by The Spectator. And so when you I sat there and I just read the headline, I didn't read the story, but I thought to myself, well, wait a minute. The reason that you have, if that's happening, it's because we've talked about identity politics, and we've talked about the fact of when we as conservatives would talk about anything over the last, 30, 40 years, every opinion we had was racist, whether you couldn't tie racism to it or not, whether you could even make the argument or not. And it didn't matter. And we came to realize one day, well, the reason is these people believe they're guilty. They believe they have the racist thoughts. You have racism in this country, and you have, as we have said, you have systemic racism in this country, and it lies at the feet and has become institutionalized inside the Democratic Party, and they call it identity politics. They judge people by groups and not individuals. And if the Republicans and if the Republicans could explain things as good as the Democrats who now reject the identity politics and the censoring and everything else that the Democratic Party wishes to do, if they could get their head on straight and communicate effectively, they could destroy it very quickly. They may be able to destroy it if they get their head together by 2024. But I don't see anything getting better for the Democrats because on the issues, they can't win. And it's simply because, as we started saying probably a year and a half ago, finally, nothing is hypothetical anymore. We're not arguing the hypothetical. If you go the Democrats' way, then 10 years down the road, it will be much better. And the conservatives saying, no, 10 years down the road, it will be much worse if you do that, because now we know reality has showed us it's worse if you follow liberal thought.
Well, and that's the difference also between abstract and reality, is politically you could sell so many things within the abstract. If you're running on the left, how many things couldn't you sell, in fact, and campaign on? And we've been asking the question over the last few cycles, election cycles, if you're on the left, what are you promoting? Okay, you hate Trump, but okay, not Trump. Okay, what else? Let's say you win. What are you going to do?
Right.
And you can't promote, you can't promise in the abstract when everybody's dealing with reality and it's all here now. That's the difference. You can't campaign in the abstract any longer.
866-90 Red Eye.
We'll be right back with more Red Eye Radio with Eric Harley and Gary McNamara.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. So looking at, this is our second last show of the year, so looking at next year and what possibly might happen, and we're talking about, can the Democrats convince America that, you know, where they stand now that the hypothetical has hit reality, can they promote what they believe successfully? One of the things we've talked about is, again, the border right now. You had Karine Jean-Pierre yesterday, and we played the audio cut yesterday where she was saying, well, no, she's offended. Biden's offended because they want to put so much money into border security. No, they don't. They want to put more money into processing illegal immigrants to become temporarily legal migrants in this country.
Right.
And then send them all over the country. That's what they wish to do.
Right.
They don't wish to close the border.
No.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One. Now, it's Red Eye Radio. Gary McNamara and Eric Harley talk about everything from politics to social issues and news of the day. Whether you're up late or you're just starting your day, welcome to the show. From the Uniden America Studios, this is Red Eye Radio.
All across America and around the world, we are Red Eye Radio. He is Eric Harley, and I'm Gary McNamara. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Looking at next year here, as this is our second last show of the year.
Yeah.
And it was, you know, just talking about the good and the bad thing is it's all bad, but there's good in the bad. And that is that the hypothetical has now hit reality for liberalism.
Mm-hmm.
And everything that was debated since I've been a talk show host was, if you do this, 10 years from now, this will be better. Liberals argued one way, conservatives argued the other way. Liberals won the hypothetical argument. Would you disagree with that?
For the longest time.
For the longest time.
The abstract,
yeah.
they could, well, perfect example. What is more abstract than hope and change? Not only could you sell that to everyone, and of course it applies to be the, sorry, Bill Clinton, first black president, right? And if you don't know the history with Bill Clinton being called the first black president, oh my gosh, can you imagine that today? But you could, it did apply there, hope and change. But it also applied to everything. As we said, it was the perfect blank canvas. Hope and change. Well, then they're promising this, they're promising this. Well, that's the whole point. In fact, I've said often, for the liberals at the time, it's one of the most brilliant campaign slogans because of the fact that it sounded like it was promising anything and let your imagination go wild.
I was going down a little bit different path, not the slogans that are used, because slogans can be viewed as abstract on both sides. A slogan, make America great again. What does that mean? Mm-hmm. It can mean now to the left it meant racism. Mm-hmm. To the right it meant get back to a better economy.
Yeah, which was clear coming from a guy that was coming out of the business sector.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So, but I was talking more about the actual abstract philosophies of, for example, we can spend and spend and spend and borrow and borrow and borrow, and we don't. There's never going to be any negative because of it. We can, and we know now that there is, because reality shows that inflation. We now know inflation's caused by so much spending. And so the Democrats are still going to continue to try to spend. The budget's going to keep going up because the interest on the debt, but there's a penalty to pay that Americans will continue to pay, and therefore there's got to be a point where either you change up or the average person just can't afford to live in this society because inflation will be so bad. And we're actually at that tipping point with the budget, and the tipping point, a lot of people probably were shocked that we finally realized that deficit spending hit so quickly with inflation. Because you and I talked about, even a year and a half ago, people would call us and say, you guys are exaggerating the problem with the debt. Nobody is saying that now. Nobody.
Because the slippery slope is not even part of the point, if you think about it. It went from boom to boom. It used to be, the conversation about it used to include that, well, we do this, it's going to the slippery slope, which again was an abstract discussion. If we do this. And that's why I think the whole hope and change thing created this huge umbrella under which you could throw in everything. Healthcare, Obamacare. You could throw in climate change. You could throw in all these abstracts and say, well, see, this is what, under my plan of cap and trade, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor, and then it was just, oh, yeah, no, that sounds great. Reality on spending hit literally within months. The answer to that, and Lawrence Summers, Obama advisor, said, don't pass that bill. Don't sign it. Don't do it. The $1.9 trillion. It will be the one that carries you over the threshold.
And we may be at $2 trillion in deficit for this year.
Yeah.
Especially if we hit some type of recession, which we didn't think we were ever going to see again outside of COVID.
Right.
Well, we're there already. And, many economists look at it and say, okay, this is the start of the death spiral that you just can't get out of it. The interest rate is so great. People that have got into debt understand that. You just can't catch up.
Right.
You can't even afford to pay the interest on what you have anymore because you've got so much debt.
Your spending power is not going to change unless your job changes, unless your pay changes. And, and that's something that, again, so you're not going to get to a point of being able to afford to pay that debt, to truly pay the principal on that debt down unless there's a big change. So
then let's look at the border. For years, the Democrats have been saying, no, if you're not for illegal immigration, you're a racist. Mm-hmm. They still try to throw that out. That's not resonating anymore, is it?
No.
Because it's not about racism.
No.
It's not about racism. It's about, legal versus illegal. It's about having a sane process for allowing people into the country. You have had this administration knew they couldn't sell it, so they've been telling you that the border is secure, even though everybody knows that it's not. And now, more Americans, everybody now is a border city. Everyone. I don't care where you are in the country. Think about it. When I go up to Buffalo, they're still talking about the migrants in the hotels there. There were 2 murders there. All of a sudden, the abstract, the hypothetical that, no. Allowing all these migrants in, and letting them be in the country for years. We brought you that story about the Colombian woman who has just got into the country. Her date to her appointment for immigration is 2031.
Yeah.
Well, Americans are fed up with it, and so now what they're telling you is not that the border is secure, but that this president has been working on border security since he first came in from day one. Everybody knows that's a lie. Everyone. Right. Unless when they say border security, they're going to tell you, well, we meant border security, and that means that everything, the security and safety of the illegal immigrants becoming migrants is what we're concerned about. Mm-hmm. That's even more important than international trade with Mexico. That's why we're shutting down the 2 train lines so we can escort them safely into the United States. That's not the border security that people are actually talking about. They're talking about the border needs to be closed. We need to stop what's going on. And so all of these things, when you look to next year, you look at EVs, and everything's coming down at the same time.
Yeah.
EVs, the fact of what they were trying to sell you is now hitting reality, and reality is pushing back. On the grid, the same thing. The warnings now are coming out consistently. We cannot continue doing this insanity. And so on all of these major, and you can take every other major issue that exists out there and say, you can't sell it anymore because people actually it's a part of their environment now. It's affecting them every single day.
Yep.
And they're sick and tired, and that's the problem that the Democrats have.
Right.
And the Democrats do not plan, from what we can see, on changing anything except doubling and tripling down on everything that reality is showing the population of the United States, is showing the citizens is failing.
Yeah. And, this is it. And you mentioned, the liberals would call you racist if you wanted to. Well, who was it? One of the Castro brothers the other day. That one's in Texas, not Cuba. Was talking about it, saying, if you're wanting to shut the border down, essentially you're a racist. He's one of the last ones in the Democratic Party that's saying that. Because you see where the counties along the border, as you mentioned, now every town is a border town. But these border towns, the border towns that are actually on the border, and counties, you saw the flip in 2020. Uvalde County, Del Rio. Uvalde. That county flipped to red. Now there's talk, and look, it's anecdotal. Fox News had the story about some people in El Paso saying the people are fed up because the border situation is just too cumbersome. I don't have confidence in El Paso that it's going to flip to red. It's a different makeup than Uvalde County. But I could be wrong about that. And the reason I put that asterisk there is because of so much weight. You and I were talking about it off the air as we kind of went over that story. And so much weight that comes from inflation along with the broken border. It's a border that was opened by this administration. The border's been broken for a long, long time. But these are the floodgates that were opened by the actions of this administration in changing immigration law, in changing terms and definitions within immigration law, like asylum. These are the things that are weighing heavily on everybody, but those cities and towns that are actually on the border, They're suffering hard.
Defund the police.
Yeah.
We see what's going on. Just see the murder rates in Seattle, I think, record highs.
Right. Yeah.
You look at Seattle, you can say that Seattle, maybe even more than Portland, because of Chad, Chop, whatever it is, and the crazy mayor that they had there. Mm-hmm. Summer of love.
The summer of love.
Yeah. You people in Seattle, you really picked a winner there, didn't you?
Right. My God.
What a nutcase she was. Wow. And so you see the murder rate, I guess, record levels. I was reading that story yesterday. Wow. Excuse my language, but what the hell did you expect?
Right. Yeah.
And you see that going on, and you see the migration, of population that came out yesterday. I saw two different stories. One said New York led, the other one said Texas, or New York led in people moving out, and then also the California did. But the Los Angeles Times had a story about the number of rich people. The rich are moving from California, and the problem is there. And we warned, by the way, Andrew Cuomo warned New York and warned liberals on it. Forget about us because we don't count. We're conservatives, and so what we say is wrong until a liberal agrees with us.
Right.
And then he even had to back off.
Right.
But he's the one that said, we can't pass this millionaire's tax. Don't you understand? We have such a progressive tax system that the top 1% pays so much of the taxes, where if you have a couple of thousand people that move out, you've just killed your budget. You can't support the budget.
Right.
So what do you have to do? You have to start taxing the people that can't afford to be taxed.
Yep. And the cost of government across the board on business in California, New York, and Illinois, and it's going up further and further. 24, some more hits on when it comes to compliance as an employer that are going to be costly. I've been saying for the longest time, at some point, you can't afford to stay. So the rich get up and leave. I mean, Bezos is leaving Seattle, going to Florida. Certainly, there's a huge tax break, right, that he's going to be able to take advantage. But you have to look at it and say, yeah, but you know what? Also, if you've got all the money in the world, and he has a lot of it, then you want to live somewhere. You want to live in a place where the policy is saying, not just for you, I mean, for people like us, it's about the safety of ourselves and our family. But, I mean, you want to see a thriving society. You want to see laws enforced. You want to see the criminals caught, detained, and dealt with.
I like that story that Newsom is moving to Texas. He's going to work remote.
He's setting up in Austin. Well, that's what happens when you lose a debate horribly.
And then he's going to say, well, the people where I live love me in Austin.
Exactly.
Now, my policies don't affect them because it's in Texas, but they still love me.
Exactly. He can still work in the abstract.
866-90-RED-I.
Brought to you by Hot Shot Secret.
Hi, I'm Jen Loomis, a transport safety expert at J.J. Keller, and I'm here to share a tip on compliance, safety, accountability. Compliance, Safety, Accountability, or CSA, is the FMCSA Safety, Compliance, and Enforcement Program. Its goal is to hold motor carriers and drivers accountable for highway safety and to reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities on our roads. CSA does this by assessing the safety performance of motor carriers and drivers based on data collected during roadside inspections, crash reports, and FMCSA investigations. Based on the data that is compiled, motor carriers are assigned a score. The carrier is then grouped with other carriers who have had a similar number of safety events. Carrier scores within the group are then ranked to determine intervention priority. Low scores are better, so carriers with the highest scores are those that are most likely to be targeted for intervention by the FMCSA. Interventions range in severity and may include warning letters, roadside, off-site, or on-site inspections, civil penalties, or operation out-of-service orders. This tip was brought to you by J.J. Keller & Associates. Visit us at jjkeller.com.
Coming up, more with Gary McNamara and Eric Harley. It's Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, no matter who is elected next year, whatever happens, and I don't necessarily have a great deal of confidence. They haven't earned a great deal of confidence, Republicans. And I'm talking about the entire party, including the candidates have to prove themselves to me. Whoever ends up being president, even Trump. I have no idea what Trump's going to do if he gets in again. That shouldn't be the case. I should know what Trump is going to do besides immigration.
Yeah, sure.
Besides illegal immigration, I should know, and I don't know. And I don't vote like a lot of Republicans vote. Neither do you. I don't vote. He's my tribe. I vote him. I have no loyalty towards politicians at all. I have loyalty towards where they stand on the issues. And so I have no confidence that Trump will do the right thing if he gets in. I have no confidence right now in anyone.
Well, everything starts at zero. It
Right.
has to be earned along the way.
And so, but what I do have confidence in is reality. And reality is now hitting. And so government is going to either have to get the approval of the people to send us right down the toilet, or they're going to be forced to change because the people just aren't going to put up with it anymore.
You know, whoever is in the White House in January of 25 is going to have a hell of a mess to clean up.
Let me make this clear. I do want any Republican over any Democrat.
Oh, yeah.
Let me make that clear, okay?
Yeah, for sure. And I've said, you know, some of the Democrats may be saying to themselves, you know what? Let the Republicans take it because they'll never be able to clean up Joe's mess. Let them have it and fail and fall on their face. We come back in 28. Because I don't know how you turn it around. One of the first things, well, always the first thing to happen is executive orders. Everything you can do administratively to undo what the last guy did if you're coming in as the opposition, as the opposite party. So that'll be a given. You move on deregulation, that's going to be a given. The pressure is going to be there, and that will be, you know, the first few days. Now, you got to get consensus within your party, and that's assuming that your party holds the majority in both the House and Senate. In order to get that agenda done, there's going to be a lot of work to be done, but what's being promised?
You're listening to Red Eye Radio from the Uniden America Studios.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's Eric Carly, and I'm Gary McNamara. So yeah, I have confidence in reality. That's about all right now. I don't have confidence in the Republicans in Congress, and Trump being in the lead. I don't see anybody beating him for the nomination.
Right.
I don't have confidence that Trump will do the right thing, and I voted for him twice. Because I don't know what he will do. He's flip-flopped on too many issues that are important to me to know what he would do if he was a lame duck president and didn't have to be elected again. I don't know. To everyone, it's you got to prove it to me. So I have no confidence in anybody on the Republican side that they will do the right thing, that they will market the right thing, they will market it the right way. They haven't earned my confidence. You know,
no, the party is repeatedly, as a whole, been at best incredibly mediocre.
Yeah.
And, there were things that we pointed out during the Trump years, like, the lowering the corporate tax rate to 21%.
Wonderful. Great.
That was
job.
a great thing.
Great job.
That was a good thing.
By the way,
business.
Nobody could have done that except Trump. I don't know any other Republican that would do that. Now, that gives me a little bit of hope
Right.
Saying, okay, if he did that, what else can he do that's completely the correct thing to do, on immigration?
Right.
Yeah, he wishes to send us in the direction we should be going in when it comes to illegal immigration in this country, while still, as he did before, promote legal immigration. On trade, I have no confidence he'll do the right thing. Look, you want to know why? For Trump, it was him coming out when inflation's killing us. It was Trump coming out saying tariffs on everything that comes into the country, a 10% tariff. Excuse me, how tone deaf are you? Prices are everything, as the Democrats are finding out. Well,
I think he even said something about prices recently.
Well, that's
recent days.
And I think he might have gotten the advice.
Yeah.
Stop talking about raising the cost of goods and services in this country. Is one of the first acts you'll do as a president. Tell people you'll lower prices. And so he was doing that and didn't mention what he said before. But the fact that he was tone deaf on it earlier, just a couple of months ago, when we've been hit with inflation for the last 2 years, sorry, that worries me.
And, if there's any personal quality about him that is promising, it's the fact that he's put his name on everything that he's built, which means he wants to show off his scorecard all the time. So you want a great scorecard on the economy. Now, the question is, how does he believe an economy works?
Well, no.
And how do you go from, it with deregulation, there's going to be an improvement in the economy. If you go in and undo a lot of what the administration did, the administrative moves, you're going to get a bump just off of that. I don't know to what extent. You'll never get pricing down the way you should, because that's only going to come down for a horrible reason, a really deep recession. And so that's hopefully not going to happen during the next administration if it's Trump or whoever it is, and it's not Biden. So, those are the things that you look at is all right. But getting back to the point of making the promise of, or pointing, it's one thing to, right now you can look at it. I mean, in order to win, things may be built in for Trump. Well, that gets you through November 5th. Then the work has to be done. Let's say the economy, immigration, everything else is working so hard against Biden that it just automatically, to a large extent, not all of it, works in Trump's favor, to the point of, we just don't want Joe Biden anymore. And he wins. But after that, same question.
Right.
Because you've got to come out, and this is what he said in 2016. He focused on immigration. And he owned that issue. He still owns that issue. And that's going to be a big deal.
When you look at the problems that I have with him, which are economic, because I don't know what he would do. Now, he did the right thing when he was there. I mean, he promoted one thing, he did the opposite. And most of his supporters who supported the more protectionist one, he was able to sell that he was exactly the same protectionist with the final version of USMCA that got rid of NAFTA. He wasn't telling the truth. Now, I'm happy that he went that direction, but it was way less protectionist than we thought it was going to originally be, which was good. And he brought Kudlow aboard. He brought Steve Moore aboard. We agreed with that because it showed he was willing to listen. But he still got the same wrong opinion on subsidizing ethanol. Remember, he supported, what was the Michigan plant that went under, the EV plant?
Oh. I forget the name of it, but yeah.
I can't think of the name of it. But he promoted that. They went belly up, as we all know. But he was promoting in 2020 that he was all for EVs.
Right.
So he's taken a ton of wrong positions and a ton of right positions. I don't know where he'll go because he has gone 180 degrees on the same issues.
Right.
Sometimes in a period of 36 hours.
Well,
remember
and
the
hopefully
remember
it would,
the visa one.
Yeah. Hopefully it would mimic most of what he did in this administration. And I say most because on the steel tariffs, he basically created that policy on the fly. If you think about it, he was at a steel plant when he announced it, and it shocked the media. They were like, whoa, what? And
When he announced what?
steel tariffs.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Okay.
And so the problem is that, that's the unpredictable nature. Because typically what you would do is you'd float that balloon. I think steel tariffs would be good. You float that out there and see what your feedback's going to be. And, it was a big deal. Then all the other tariffs that were in play and how that affected the farmers and disrupted the trade routes and all of that. And that's all they really wanted, reestablish the trade routes. So that's the question, is on items like that, where are the moves? Did he learn from those? And is that part over? Look, we can talk about China. China should be dealt with. Intellectual property rights and the fact that they don't respect them and haven't from the beginning needs to change. And the entire international trade community, led by the U.S., needs to choke China out and say, you don't get away with this one moment longer. They were headed in that direction. But I don't know if that's going to be an attempt in a second Trump term. I don't know. I haven't heard him talk about that lately. This is my point in like the campaign promises. You do have to go beyond. There are some givens, administrative moves and everything else, immigration. But you kind of have to go beyond that and start talking. And I'm sure in 24 that is going to be, the case.
It was the Lordstown plant that he endorsed.
And you've got to say, okay, it's one thing to win the election. I mean, you do. That's the biggest thing. But you're going to have to also lay out your plan for and it's only one term for him. That's it. He's got one more 4-year shot. And if the polls remain and the trend remains, the trend here lately in these head-to-head polls, that's when you kind of have to, I think that's when you really get more room to step up and go, okay, this is going to be our agenda in our second term. Now, again, we're not to 24 yet. I do expect to hear that, though, in 24 on the campaign trail.
You brought this up the other day. Can Trump in a second term unite Republicans in Congress?
Well, this is what I mentioned earlier. You've got to build a consensus. And that's assuming the GOP maintains control of the House and regains control of the Senate.
If Trump wins, they will.
Yeah, you've been making that case saying, look, there's no way, this time on the down ballot.
The odds, if Trump wins, I'll take that bet, and I don't bet.
Well, and the 24 Senate races, the map, the makeup, actually favors right now that happening in terms of gaining the Senate again. That's certainly the odds looked at, and if he wins, even greater odds in that direction, and the House hopefully can sweep up the floor and get it together in 24, and also would benefit from the down ballot tremendously if he wins. So then it's consensus. I mean, you got to populate a cabinet and a staff. And quite frankly, this is a guy who will make an enemy out of somebody who's been loyal to him. And if you have any questions, go ask Jeff Sessions. He was the most loyal GOPer on the Trump train early in 2016 and became his attorney general. And all of that is in the past. And you can say, well, but Sessions, blah, 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 blah. That's not the point. The point is people who have not served under him, who have not necessarily been. He's going to need more than those that are out there right now campaigning for him. Who knows? There might be, a place for, I don't know, a Byron Donalds, or someone in the cabinet, maybe Carrie Lake again in the cabinet, not as in the VP slot, but who knows? But that's the question. You're going to have to, that loyalty, that consensus has to remain for the mission to be done, for the agenda to be fulfilled.
I think it's more. I wasn't really talking about the cabinet as I was. He needs to be a leader and unite Congress to get things through.
Well, that's my point. You got to build consensus,
right?
But you also have to start by having everything in play and showing that you're not going to create an enemy out of one of your own cabinet members so quickly. Because how do you build a consensus on Capitol Hill and that still be the nature of how you get things done?
Or you're not going to win 100%, so don't make enemies with the Republican leaders, especially if you agree on 70 to 80% of things to move through, get that move through instead of nothing.
Yeah, you have to build a consensus across the board.
And he has not shown himself in his political history to be a consensus builder.
And he's capable of it.
Absolutely.
Of any president. That's the most frustrating part.
That's what frustrated both you and I. He has the ability to bring people together.
Just not the nature.
Right.
And that's required.
Well, that's where you act as a leader.
But, here's the thing. He can. We've seen him do that on other fronts.
Yep.
That's the most frustrating part.
866-90-RED-EYE.
Lines open for your calls. 866-90-RED-EYE on Red Eye Radio.
It's Red Eye Radio. He's our Crony, and I'm Gary McNamara. So, when I look at next year, and I guess we specifically look at next year, everything right now favors Republicans. My point has just been reality is what's really going to dictate what happens over the next few years. No matter who's in power, everybody's going to be restricted on spending because the debt is going to be so great that you have to worry about inflation at that point.
I think there is a case to be made about I don't know if micromanaging is the word, but every aspect of a campaign, you're going to have to be on sure footing. Beyond the whole abstract versus reality thing. When you get into addressing reality, if you're a conservative, you should always be. It is also on every issue. I think you have to be very, blunt and clear about things. Because I was thinking yesterday, even the labels, conservative, liberal, even the party names, Republican, Democrat, I think the average voter's looking at it going, look, we're drowning. We want to hear a plan. We want to hear something from somebody that is at least not tone deaf, that shows that they understand fully what families are going through and what needs to change, and then show us a plan to change it.
Now, you make a great point that we'll talk more about.
This is Red Eye Radio on Westwood One.